Welcome to the Power of Design podcast, where we have inspiring conversations that explore the intersection of architecture, construction, and real estate, so we can understand the dynamics and trends that shape an exciting and powerful built environment. This is your host, Jack Osa. Today, we'll be talking to my friend Carrie Frye. Carrie is a gifted interior designer. She is the founder and lead designer of Carrie Frye Interior Design. She specializes in commercial interiors and restaurant design. If you are in Charlotte, North Carolina, you may recognize some of her greatest projects, like La Belle Helene, the Crunkleton, and the Waterman. I'm excited about our conversation today, not only because I admire and respect Carrie for having the courage to start and run her own successful design business, but also she brings a wealth of knowledge and passion to the business of design. Please visit www.CFID Studio to learn more about Carrie and her company. Here is my conversation with Carrie Frye. Carrie, welcome to the Power of Design podcast. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here. So, Carrie, you have an impressive portfolio of corporate interiors and restaurant design projects. What's your biggest motivation when you are faced with a new design challenge?
I would say trying to figure out the important pieces for the client and figuring out where their head is at with, is it the flow of the space? Is it materials in the space? Is it some of the elements of the space? What is it that they're putting the most importance on, so that I can make sure, from my perspective, that we emphasize those same things, because that gives everybody kind of a clear path to follow, and it helps to identify the pieces that I want to focus on, and the parts I can get excited about.
You're trying to find what's the most important thing for the client, and then that will be the foundation of your whole design solution.
Yes.
And I guess
if they're a ceiling, if they want the ceiling to be this amazing thing, or the flooring or the furniture, and because then that helps me understand, okay, this is the kind of decisions that they're going to make, or they're going to make their decisions based on X, Y, and Z. And I can lead them then in those directions, as opposed to me walking in and saying, oh, I think we need to do this. And then sometimes, they want me to tell them because they don't have that. But at least I know walking in, if I say, oh, I think we need to do this, they say, no, I really wanted to focus on this detail instead. Yeah. And here's why. Yeah. And then we can have a dialogue about it, because sometimes I agree, sometimes I don't. Yeah. Right. But at the end of the day, it's their space, and I want to be there to emphasize their space to the best that it can be. Yeah.
So, Carrie, tell us about where you come from, where you grew up.
So I grew up in southwestern Virginia, a small town, went to Virginia Tech, and go Hokies. Was ready to go someplace with more opportunities, and ended up in Charlotte, and it's been over 20 years now. And, I think when we moved here, we definitely came here for the business opportunities, and I don't know that we necessarily thought it was going to be forever, but it pretty much is at this point. I mean, it's an amazing city, and I've loved watching it grow. Yeah. And I love being able to see my kids grow up with the different opportunities that I just didn't have. Yeah. And it's really, the sky is the limit. Yeah. So did you find yourself when you were little thinking about design, space, liking things? I did. I used to draw house plans, nice. Which is funny because I don't do residential at all and have no desire to do residential at this stage. Yeah. And pretty much when I went to college, and even in high school with drafting classes that I took, didn't want to do residential. But yes, from a pretty early age, because I was one of those kids in middle school that had my whole high school, every year of classes lined up, coming into ninth grade. Right. Because I wanted to take drafting, and then I knew I was going to go into, originally I actually thought maybe it was architecture. Okay. And then when I started touring colleges, in high school, I realized that it wasn't the architecture piece that interested me. It was the interior piece. Yeah. So I sort of redirected my college focus, if you will, and found programs that focused on interior design.
Yeah. How was your experience going through that program?
It was really good. I mean, I felt like we had a really good range of classes, and, I think as with pretty much just about anything, there's some real world aspects that you just can't capture in the classroom. But by and large, I felt like I came out with a really good base from a business perspective, from a how to work with people perspective, and just at least knowing that there's all of these things out there that in my job, I'm going to need to touch on.
Yeah.
I may not know a whole lot of minutia and a lot of detail in some of them, but it's a phase or it's a part of my job that I'm going to have to work on, I guess.
Yeah. And now that with all your experience, you've been collaborating with many architects, because, there's always we're working together. How do you find your perspective back then, deciding to not pursue architecture? Now that you understand it more, did you have good information and understanding at that time, or do you think about that sometimes? And I ask because, we're basically creating spaces, creating the built environment for people to, do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of professionals. What do you think about that?
I do think it was a good decision, and I think I did have the right information. And I say all the time that, as a designer or as architects, we, just like anything, you tend to specialize in certain things. And, I think that's what's so great, especially in my current situation, is that I can work with folks that are specialized in all these different categories, and therefore we're our best selves.
Yeah.
Right. It's, we have, I joke that I suppose if you told me I had to design a hospital project, I could potentially muddle my way through it, but yes. I'm not the best choice for that. Right. I mean, I don't have no experience in that. And there are people that have great experience in that know how to do that with their eyes closed. So,
yeah. For the first maybe 12 years of my career, I focused on, base buildings and just like macro view of, creating space and architecture. Right. And when it got the time where I had to focus on interior space, interior environment, it was very eye-opening for me, because that's what really people experience, what people are touching, what you see, what your hands are, the things that you see immediately. A great building outside looks great and is good,
gets you to the space.
How is that really impacting most of your experience, which is
interior,
probably 90% of your time indoors.
Right.
So I started, getting expertise, learning and appreciating the interior design aspect and how detailed it is, the amount of technicalities, understanding of materials, because that all is affecting your space.
Oh, it is, and and that's my company's mission, is to create space for people to enjoy.
Yeah.
Right. And that happens on a very micro level. And a lot of times they don't necessarily know what it is about a space that they like, or what it is what the detail is, but there's just something, it feels good. It feels comfortable. It's a space they want to come back to. Hopefully. Yeah. even office. I mean, I've done office for the better part of my career or designed office space. And it's, we spend most of our time at the office. And so the more that we can affect and influence that space as designers so that it's more comfortable for folks, the better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say that you would enjoy working in an office, right? Because it seems those are sort of opposite statements, but I think it can happen. Yeah. If you're being tasked from a professional standpoint to be able to do the things that you enjoy, and you're in a space that allows you to do that, then the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
So
Carrie, you're not only a very talented designer, but you're also an entrepreneur. You're a business owner. You took the leap to pursue your dreams.
Yes.
How did that happen?
It was a lot of work, hard work. And I think, as I was thinking about talking with you today and how to sort of put that in words, I would say that, one of the things that the millennials get a bad rap about is the sort of entitlement.
Yeah.
And there is some of that, certainly. But I think a lot of it is that they want to know today what if I work and do this for 6 months, in 6 months I get X. And when I was coming up, as Gen Xers, it was just go get it done, work hard, get it done. And that thing in 6 months will happen.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think if I would talk to them, that's what I try to tell them. It's like, you don't have to have it figured out right off the bat. And that's tough, right? Because I'm a type A person too.
Right.
So I know that I need to understand, if if this project gets put on hold, I need to know that there's going to be another one, coming back to backfill it, right now. And sometimes, so I say this as much to myself, I guess, as I do other people. But I think that was how I got to be able to be in a position to go out on my own and be more entrepreneurial with it is that I spent my 20s and the early part of my 30s just buckling down and working hard.
Right.
I didn't eat many dinners before 8 p.m., but it was okay because I was the more that I did that, the more that I was tasked and was trusted to do that.
Oh yeah.
I can remember a job where I got a promotion that I didn't see coming at all. I was working. I was doing my thing. I was representing the company. I treated the companies as if they were my own, even when they weren't my own, and walked into a company retreat. And at the end of the retreat, found out I'd gotten a promotion and had no idea, I had no idea it was coming. So, and I think, so that was that thing that the younger crowd, I think, they want to know, okay, well, if I do this and I do this and I do this, then I get that promotion. And for me, it wasn't that. It was just,
and I think that's a really good position to be when you're a professional. You gain a lot of experience dealing with clients, managing projects at a higher level. So, once you have all those experiences with you, then when you start, you have all that background to deliver to your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I navigated some, the first firm I was at was at a larger firm. And then most of my career I've spent at smaller firms. But, as I navigated my career, a lot of the folks senior level to me either took other jobs or got put off on other jobs. And so I found myself being given a lot of rope.
Yep.
And so I swung with it. I'm like, let's have fun with this. I took the opportunity and did a good job with it.
Yeah.
And worked hard for sure. But just also realized and recognized the opportunity that I'm being given. And, again, I think treating it as if it was my own.
Yep.
And really having some ownership of it.
Yep. So Carrie, you're an expert in corporate interiors and restaurant design. What makes a great restaurant experience?
I'm a huge proponent of flow in a restaurant and being able to get from point A to point B efficiently, not only for the customer, but also for the staff. And, being able to be greeted, to be able to go to the bar, to the patio, to the restroom, without necessarily affecting the dining experience, and so that when you come in, but also when you come in, you get this sense of energy and the sense of excitement about the experience you're getting ready to have.
Yeah. So I guess when you start a project, you start imagining, I'm going to go to this restaurant, who's going to be greeting me? Where am I going to sit?
Right.
What am I going to see? You start designing that experience in your mind.
Absolutely. And then, I think maybe some of it comes from the corporate interior side too. The space plan for me is my favorite, hands down. It's a puzzle, and working that puzzle out to make the most of all of those experiences. But then again, also providing, the back of house with the best way for them to be operational so that the customer gets the best experience operationally. The space can look great. If the service is terrible, it doesn't really matter. Yep. There's multiple restaurants that you could look at that have failed, not because it wasn't a gorgeous space, it's because they operationally and a lot of that could have been on the space. Oh, yeah. That it wasn't, there were too many steps that they had to take, or the kitchen, the way the kitchen was laid out didn't provide for enough efficiency to be able to get the food out quick enough, or it was cold or whatever it might be. So
yeah. There's just so many aspects of creating that experience that is not limited to design.
No, it's very, and I think that's the other thing about my career that I've always kind of had my hand in I've worn a lot of hats and had my hand in sort of all aspects of it, so from business development to space planning to design to having that coordination with some of those vendors that are back of house that you would never see. And that's what's, I think, helped I do a lot of my businesses based on referrals. And that's where a lot of those referrals come from, is because I have that understanding and I know who to bring in when and who to call and what elements and pieces and parts we need.
Yeah. Talking about corporate work, what do you think are the trends that they're really shaping, the new workplace, and maybe they're not just, some ideas that they're going to go away in a couple of years, but what do you think are the radical changes that are going to stay?
Honestly, I think we're still in the infancy of that. I still think there's a lot more we could be doing with indoor-outdoor space in office. I can't figure out why we can't get exterior conference rooms to be to be more of a thing, other than even with AV. There's ways to work around AV, but I think it's, we've seen a lot about the open office, and then how folks, there's the counterpoint about how people can't focus. They can, and so it's a balance, but absolutely, I think bringing a little bit of a residential feel and even a hospitality, that restaurant aspect to it. We are every day that goes by, every generation that comes in is more on sensory overload all the time, and so we have to have different moments in the day that we can get up and move around to. So, I'm a big proponent of the open office. I'm a big proponent of touch points and having places for accidental meetings to happen. I think we've got to do. I think we can always do a better job of that, and forcing people to move around. Forcing is a bit of a dramatic word, but just encouraging maybe is a better way of saying that. To move around and interact with folks. Yeah. And it's I think if you set it up such that folks have different opportunities, they'll eventually come around to it, or they'll get used to it. Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of the new normal. And I think that having, with technology, we're very much less paper intensive, right? So we don't need these big offices. We don't need these big file cabinets. We don't need all of that stuff that we used to need. We need places where we can plug in and have a 2-person meeting. We need, even big conference rooms. Honestly, I try to steer a lot of clients away from big conference rooms that get used very little. Yeah. Most meetings are 4 people. Waste of space. It's just a waste of space. Mm-hmm. So, then that's also your break room island, or it's your reception area. There's still that pomp and circumstance around a reception and a place of arrival, which is great, and you've got to have that to a certain extent. But it can also be, why does it just have to be a spot where there's one person that sits and greets people? Why can't it be more of a living room, in your house? Yeah. A foyer into a living room. Yeah.
We'll be right back with more from the Power of Design podcast.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
What do you think sets you apart from other designers?
I think it's all the hats that I wear. It's although I do think as an industry, we're doing a better job, and the people that I'm seeing coming out of school and with a couple of years experience, I think we're doing a better job of it. Back in the day, 20 years ago, designers would get pigeonholed a lot, where all we would do was pick finishes, and we would do floor patterns, and we didn't get into reflected ceiling plans. We didn't get into elevations or millwork details, and that was something for me. Just luckily, where the firms that I was at, I'm talking about, given the latitude earlier, that I started doing all that, and again, so it's like then again, sort of completely on my own, wanting to feel valuable, started doing some business development, even though I wasn't asked to do it. I guess maybe it was an appreciation of the opportunities that I'd been given. And so I didn't want it to go away. Right. So I, started doing business development, and then with that comes, I have to write my own proposals. Right. And I've got to answer to the proposal that I wrote, right? Whether it was good or bad,
right?
And then the coordination, and then the design. I mean, right? There's the whole design aspect of it. But I still have clients today that I've had long-term relationships with that will call me, even though I can't sign and seal drawings, but they call me to facilitate it and say, hey, you handle it. We know you'll get it done. All aspects of it. Go forth and prosper.
Yeah, and when we're talking to clients that they're not in the design industry, it's hard for them to understand, exactly what's the role of an interior designer.
Yeah.
Like how far do you go, and what are your capabilities?
It is.
And I think that's overall in the architecture profession, even where we have not really educated the public of how do we provide those services?
Right.
That's
a good point.
I get asked about if I do engineering drawings,
right?
Or then if you're an architect, why don't you do the interior design? And I can, but there's another layer.
Goes
of
back
expertise.
to my hospital, my example from earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think what's great about architects and designers is we know, and engineers, it's like we know the parts that we are our wheelhouse, and then we know the parts that we collaborate with others on. Right. And because they have the expertise in it.
Yeah.
So
when you're working on projects, we know we're collaborating with architects, designers, contractors, project managers, all these professionals. What will you say makes a great general contractor?
Yeah. So certainly how their staffing of the project, the on-site person. A lot of, honestly, on a job site, I think the two most important people are the superintendent and the head electrician, because those guys, there's a lot that is involved in the electrical part of it, not only from a behind the scenes, but then from the decorative piece of it, and making sure that's correct. And I think, but having the superintendent that is somebody that understands it's a team approach, and I think I think that's something that we have gotten better over the years with that, where, and maybe that's just me, that I have more experience now. And so I'm treated differently on a job site than when I was 25.
Yeah.
But I do think we've gotten better about that. And it has to be a team approach. But also then the subcontractors. And that's something I know currently in this current market that we're in, we struggle a little bit with. We've got some good contractors on the higher end, and then we've got some contractors, that can absolutely get a project done, but I think some of the craftsmanship is lacking. So I think there's a middle ground sometimes that it'd be nice to have the guys that are on the upper echelon, but also have that upper echelon budget or expense related to it. If we could find somebody in the middle every now and again.
Yeah.
But it's certainly having people that understand it's a team, and that the design was done for a reason. And that they're, I get it. They're there to get a job. They're there to get it done. But at the same time, the ones that are respectful to the design and say, here's what you're trying to do. I'm struggling with this detail. here's my thoughts on it. What do you think? Is this a good avenue to pursue or not?
Yeah.
As opposed to just saying, I couldn't make your detail work, so I did something else.
Right. Yeah. We all have our own priorities, but it seems to be that, the most successful projects is where everybody shares the vision.
Yes.
I have worked on projects when, the superintendent is coming up with great ideas that I haven't even thought about.
Yeah,
like, hey, what if we do this way? And that tells me that they understood the project. So
right.
even from our side, I think if we take the time, 30, 40 minutes just to talk to the guys on site and say, hey, these are the sometimes the renderings, they don't even make it to construction.
Right.
drawings.
They don't even know.
Like,
yeah.
well, I'm just doing whatever is shown.
Yeah.
But if they see the vision in part, they see the environment and experience we're trying to design, even better, because, at the end of the day, that's their level of expertise.
Yep. And
they may come up with some other great ideas that we haven't
even thought of.
about.
Yeah. Nothing frustrates me more than a contractor that says, well, that's what the drawing said, Carrie.
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you right then I'm done and it's going to be a long project.
Yes.
So, that's super frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we also work many times with third-party project managers, usually hired by the client to execute the project.
Right.
What do you think makes a great project manager?
A lot of the same characteristics, to be honest. Somebody that understands the vision and somebody that doesn't just say, well, the budget is this and we've got to cut some money. So, to heck with that ceiling detail, it's got to go.
Yeah.
It's somebody that understands and appreciates the vision and isn't just trying to get from point A to point B and move on to the next project.
Yeah.
It's a similar type thing. I appreciate having them and having that captain of the ship and having them sort of make sure that all aspects of are running in tandem as they should be. But I definitely, they've got to have that shared vision and understanding of what we're going for and that everybody on the team has a value.
Yeah.
And that value, let's, utilize the value of your team members, right? and their expertise and their creativity. And so.
Yeah, making sure you ask questions to the experts, not making decisions. And then you're like, hey, what happened here?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, we cut that off. And you're like, oh, thank you for asking.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. Or at least ask me, in advance, like, hey, we've got to cut 20% out of this budget or whatever it might be. What are your ideas, Mr. Designer or Mr. Architect, for doing that? I'm, instead of me telling you, you tell me.
Yeah.
Because, and I say a lot in every project, there's always something that is the lead actor, and then there's the lead, or the supporting. Mm-hmm. And so having a good project manager that comes back to you and saying, okay, I know that the lighting, for example, is a big thing for you, and we've got to cut some money out of the project, but let's not touch the lighting. So is there other places maybe we can cut a little bit to make it happen. So.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest challenge your clients are facing today? And it could be, on the restaurant side or corporate.
Yeah,
what do you think?
It's really, you see it in both is budgets, is qualified contractors. I don't know if that's a leftover from the last recession, that enough people just got out of it and nobody, not enough are getting back into it. And the ones that are busy. Mm-hmm. But there's certainly again, I alluded to that earlier that, we've kind of got two extremes and the middle is a little bit lost right now, I think. Yeah. Somebody that can do a good quality project. I feel like we've kind of got the entry level cars and, we've got the upper echelon, the Teslas of the world, but we're missing, where's the Buicks?
Yes.
Right. That are good projects. Not every project is gonna land on the cover of a magazine, mm-hmm. right? But it's still somebody's office. It's still somebody's restaurant, and they have a lot of pride in it. And we've got to figure out a way to make it just as sexy as somebody with the Tesla budget.
Yeah. What are some of the favorite projects you have designed here in Charlotte?
You cannot. That's like picking your favorite child. Last year, and I just did a Instagram post about this, but last year was a really great year, and that La Belle Helene and the Crunkleton and the Waterman all came online last year. 3 very different concepts, and three concepts that I had a lot of fun with, and a lot of different materials over the course of those 3. And different looks and different experiences and different clientele. I mean, it just was, really, if you sit down and talk about who's your demographic for each one, what are people wearing at those, we did some brainstorming around the Waterman and, down to the detail of, were they wearing a watch or not? And it's, but that's the kind of detail of them, want to know who your audience is.
Yeah.
And that was, I think those were 3 projects that stand out to me that are unique and were all such great experiences in and of themselves. So
what do you think it's going to be the evolution of restaurant design? We know people always going to go to restaurants. We know there are very different spectrums from, fast food to very high end.
Right.
And we're seeing a lot of concepts that they're kind of meeting in the middle, and they go, they borrow things from the other. What do you think is the trend?
I think that, maybe not the full on fast casual where you have to queue through a line, but I do think the more casual aspect is certainly something that's going to be around for a while. I also do, I think that like office space that needs an evolution and needs different touch points and experiences for the employees, customers at a restaurant, same. That's why you see the breweries being so popular.
Oh, yeah.
Is because you literally can go with your dog, with your kids, so you have, or the social rooms that have all the different, where you can go just hang out at the bar, or you can go bowling, or you can play volleyball, or whatever it might be. I think that's the evolution a little bit, is having multiple experiences in one spot where you don't have to try, your audience can be really broad because there's something for everyone. But at the same time, and that's because, we want lots of experiences, right? But I do also think there is on the flip side of that, I think there is a market for sort of specialty places too. Okay. And the Crunkleton's a great example of that. We've seen that, hands down. It's like they had to go to reserve seating because it was too crowded. Yeah. Right. I mean, which is great. These are really good problems to have. Oh yeah. Right. But it's, and you want that intimate feel, right? The days of the big restaurant really are really over, because then you've got to fill it. Yeah. And you'd rather have a 45-minute wait than have a 7,000 square foot restaurant.
Do you always go and eat at the restaurants you design?
I do. Yeah. I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Whole thing, and probably you may even want to try the food before you start designing, right?
I do. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There's, I shouldn't tell on myself, but I'm not a big seafood eater, and so there's, my client of the Waterman and who also in Sea Level has been good to me to try to get me to try things, but is patient with me also at the same time. So it's, but yes, I mean, it's another great example of driving to the coast of North Carolina to the farm. Sea Level has its own farm, and, going out with the farmers on their boat into the Core Sound and having them pull oyster cages up and dumping fresh oysters on the front of the boat. Nice. So it's, not everybody gets to do that, and it's pretty special.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah. And but it also helps you understand again, going back to my comment about what's the client's driving, force behind this project? Why are they doing this? And that's the kind of moment that helps you understand it. Yeah. So
what's your vision for the future of Carrie Frye Interior Design?
It's a great question. And I work with a business coach, and that's one of the things that we're working on and continually working on. I think one of the things throughout my career is I've been very in the trenches. And so one of the things that I would say I'm that's why I'm working on it, is that sort of 30,000 foot.
Yep.
And what are the next steps? And I think one of the things over the last 5, almost 6 years now that I've learned is that you can be a sort of an independent designer and collaborate with different folks. As long, it's a lot of it goes back to having good relationships and meeting people and talking to people. And I think the sky's the limit, really, in terms of how big or not big that can grow this. But just helping and being a resource has been a great experience. So, I'm also considering, from a manufacturing side of things, are there, consistently, I think there's a lack of good furniture, restaurant furniture, at a right price point.
Yeah.
So is that something that I want to try to explore as a parallel path to what I'm doing?
Yeah, I love that. I think as a small business, one of the advantages we have is flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once you have a big system with people, with payroll, with established things that you need to meet, it's really hard to pivot and try other things because you just need to keep feeding that machine.
Exactly. And that's what's nice about being small and nimble.
Yeah.
And working with contract folks and working, on a consultancy basis with folks, is it allows you to, I got a call, yesterday from an architect who, wants me to just do a small piece of the project, which is great. I can step in and do my piece and they can run with the rest of it. And that's great, but you're right. I mean, I think what's nice is having the flexibility to take things on or not take things on.
Yeah.
And that a lot of that comes from years of hard work and developing relationships.
Yeah. Well, Carrie, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you sharing your expertise. I admire you and I respect you so much.
Same to you.
And I look forward to stay in touch and hopefully work together in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Remember to rate and review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Find out more about Jack and OSA Studio at osastudio.com and follow us on Instagram at the Power of Design podcast. Thank you.